Hey Wizards, it has been a busy preview season for a set that doesn't come out next. Anyways, we got some spoilers for Final Fantasy, and I want to talk about some of them. Starting with the commanders, I don't really have much to say about these. Titus, Cloud X Soldier, Terra Herald of Hope, and Yashola Knights Blessed all look like great fun cards. If you haven't seen those, I will link a video for SMTG Magic. I think they've got a great explanation of these and great commentary on seeing some of our favorite Final Fantasy cards. I know Terra is near and dear to my heart, as is the whole FF6 cast, and can't wait to see that. Y'shtola here too is also very near and dear to me as a big FF14 fan, and I think this card in particular actually does look quite playable. This is quite interesting. I don't know that it's going to be super spike kind of competitive, but it should be fun for a pre-con level deck. But really what I want to talk to you about today are the other cards that were announced today. A couple of kind of honorable mentions here. We have some bonus sheet prints here with Ancient Copper Dragon here as the Dragon of Mount Golg. Fun. Yuffie Kisaragi here is also a fun inclusion. I don't think this is legal in Brawl right now, which I would actually prefer to play it in the near future. But if I was going to pick up a different version for a commander deck, this would 100% be the way I would do it. I like this card a lot, even if it is just a more or less copy-paste of the original art on a gray background. It's such good art, I'd be happy to play it. Getting out of those, let's get into the actual real standard cards. We can see the new set symbol down here. Curious what you all think of it. I personally love it. The FF with the crystal is iconic, although it definitely harkens back to a more pixel bit era than we currently experience today, in my opinion. So we have this little chocobo here, 1 green emblem, creature bird, not a chocobo unfortunately, and has landfall. Whenever land you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So you play this turn 1, turn 2 you play Fabled Passage or another land, Crack a Wild, Evolving Wilds, and this is a 2/3, and then it only is going to get bigger from there. I definitely think we might be seeing a green-black landfall deck evolving in Standard. By the time June rolls around and this set comes out, this might be a solid contender for a 1-drop. I'm pretty sure it's fairly light mana, or turns 1 through 3 heavy though. Still, I expect this to see some play. I don't think it's going to blow the meta out by any means though. Moogle Merchant here. This is a Moogle as a creature type. Is a legendary creature, has a white pip as the only cost. 1 and 2 are its power and toughness. Lifelink, which is all fine, but nothing amazing, especially for a rare card, until you get to its effect. 2 and tap this. Target opponent gains control of another target permanent you control. If they do, you draw a card. Ooh. This is going to go straight into decks that want to give you some of the enchantments that basically just say lose the game, or if you keep this enchantment, you have to pay X cost to do so. I don't love fighting against those decks, and I think this is going to give them a really strong, extra reliable method of finding it. This is probably a must-kill creature when it gets dropped on you, but it doesn't go in very many decks. Outside of those combo pieces, I'm struggling to think of what else this goes into. Funnily enough, the text here even mentions combo as a sales tactic for them. Maybe intentional, maybe not, but I do think it's funny. Yeah, we'll see. I don't think I'm going to enjoy seeing this guy. I will probably play the deck once, twice with this guy in it, and a couple of other enchantments we can give to our opponent to ruin their day. I don't think it's going to be particularly competitive, just annoying. Tonberry. This is a card I really wanted to see them do right, and did not expect to see till close to the end of the hype cycle for Final Fantasy, but here we are, well before day 1 officially. Tonberry, 1 black mana for a 2/1 Salamander Horror. This creature enters tapped with a stun counter on it, so you play this turn 1, turn 2 you remove the stun counter, turn 3 it untaps and it can actually do something. So the effect needs to be really, really good here for this to see play. And we get Chef's Knife. During your turn, this creature has First Strike and Death Touch. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be fast enough to be good in a lot of decks. And the fact that it loses first strike and death touch when it's not your turn means that on your turn it's just a 2-for-2/1 that you had to wait multiple turns to get. Maybe there is an answer in the mirror where you play this on a later turn and then you can immediately remove the untap counter from it, or just untap it in general and then swing with it. I don't see where this fits into our current meta. It's probably too slow against mono red, up against Boros Auras. But it is still in black. It has good creature removal elsewhere. You can probably get to the point where this is untapping. And I'm thinking maybe there's a world where we run like black, white, black, green, even black, blue, and play this almost as an enchantment creature, where we're immediately getting first strike and death touch, and then we put haste, or not haste, ward and life gain and some other effects on this. Sheltered by Ghost gets dropped on this. I don't know that that's deck's good either, but first strike death touch is hard to handle, and if it's a 5/6, first strike death touch is hard to handle though. If this becomes something like a 5/6, I don't know how you're going to handle that. Certainly not with creature blocks, not unless you're a really goes wide, heavily deck. So very interesting. I'd like it enough. I kind of hope it's not our only Tomberry though. Maybe bring the Tomberries from FF15, the Jedi Tomberries, as another crazy inclusion that can actually do a little bit more and affect the meta a little bit more. I think this is going to be fun to brew with, but not competitive. Garland, Knight of Cornelia. I think I'm pronouncing that last word correctly. Legendary creature, Human Knight, 3/2. In Rakdos colors for just a black and a red. Uncommon. Whenever you cast non-creature spell, Surveil 1. I think this is already pretty good. It's a turn 2 do nothing except get a 3/2 body. But if you can untap with it, and I don't think it's a must-kill card, the Surveil is actually pretty good, especially in these colors. When it dies, you can return it to the battlefield transformed, activate only as a sorcery, for 7 mana, 3 colorless, 2 black, 2 red. On the surface, as this part of it, I think it's okay. I think it could see play, but I don't think it's crazy either. Potentially a good sacrifice outlet. I'm not sure if the sacrifice goes off first or second. So the Surveil, does the Surveil go first, or does the sacrifice trigger happen first if I have a spell that wants to sacrifice it? I'm not sure about that. If you can sacrifice it to another spell's effect, that would be great, but I don't think you can because it's part of the cast condition. So that's unfortunate. Still, I could see it being played. The transform version is a flying 5/5 that when it dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. This isn't much, not for the 7 mana it costs to bring out, and I'm not sure of any way to cheat that because it's a transform effect you have to pay to do. Yeah, cool card. Chaos the Endless is a great allusion to the first boss. I mean, it is the final boss of FF1. Spoilers if you're not aware for that ancient game, unfortunately. A little sad. I don't think this is going to see a lot of play, but the Surveil on the front card is pretty good. The Dark Knight. Legendary creature, Human Knight. Very, very relevant card types. It is rare, and it costs 1 black pip for a 2/3 death touch. If that was all this is, I think this card would see play. But it goes on. Darkness. Whenever it deals damage, you lose that much life. Then, if your life total is less than or equal to your starting life total, untap him and transform it. Okay, so it's a pretty solid body. Turn 2, you're swinging a 2/3 death touch. That's really difficult to stop, let alone kill. But when it deals damage, you lose that much life. There could be some fun triggers here with some other regular black and white stuff where you could potentially get this life link, so you heal the damage off of Shelter by Ghost, which you could do turn 2. You could also potentially do some of the other combo pieces that like dealing damage or you losing life to gain life, etc., etc. It's kind of cool in those cases, but really the idea is you swing with this enough to get your own life low enough that you transform it into the redeemed Paladin version. And this is a lifelink 4/4 that whenever it attacks, other creatures gain indestructible until the end of your turn. So a pretty cool and on above right even 1 mana black card, which transforms into an interesting white card that gives all your other creatures indestructible, noting that it has to attack to do that. I like this a lot. Again, I don't know quite where its home is. You could maybe play this in something like a Orzhov Matters of Life Gain deck, where you have enough lifelink to go up, and then this comes down in its first form, turn 1, and puts on pressure, and then eventually it transforms, and all of a sudden all your other creatures have indestructible. But it's probably only for that one swing, and I'm just not sure that's good enough to want to include this inclusion. A 4/4 lifelink is also kind of hard to protect, but also the white-black life gain matters deck is strong enough that maybe it'll want this. There's potential, but it's not going high on my list of cards at the moment. Emmett Selch Unsundered. 1 blue and a black legendary creature Elder Wizard for a 2/4. Comes in with Vigilance. When it enters or attacks, you may draw a card, discard a card. Pretty good. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 14 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform this card. So super easy to hit. It's mythic rare. It's pretty on rate for 3 mana, but not above rate. The ETB is good, and the upkeep trigger shouldn't be too hard to trigger to make occur. I'm trying to remember if upkeep causes it to have summoning sickness when it transforms, and I'm not sure about that with transform. If it does, that's probably almost going to certainly ruin the next portion of this card. If it doesn't, it's a pretty solid card that is going to do good things. I don't think you're going to swing with this a lot turn 3, but you almost just treat it as an enchantment that comes down turn 3, draws, and discard a card, and then turn 4, turn 5, you hit those 14 cards in your discard in your graveyard, you transform this card. And you get Hades, Sorcerer of Eld. 6/6 Vigilance. Echoes of Lost. During your turn, you may play cards from your graveyard. If a card or token will be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Okay, so you've got a guaranteed 14 cards in your graveyard before this triggers, and then you can play any of them for their actual mana value out of your graveyard as if it was your hand. That is a lot of fun. It only costs 3 mana for the initial one. You can't have multiple copies on the field, but you can in your deck. And I do believe you can have a Hades down and a Emmet. Of course, on your upkeep, it's going to transform, so you got to think you're going to lose Hades for some reason. And it doesn't give you flash, doesn't give you insta speed, so that's potentially a problem. Vigilance 6/6, no flying though on this avatar, which I think really would have been useful for it as far as a win now kind of style card. Overall, I expect to have fun with this card. I don't think it is above rate. I really don't have much else to say. It looks fun. It's going to go in a few brews. I don't expect to see it in an AB, probably not even a C tier deck though. Okay, then we have Summon Shiva. So this is a new card, or new style of card, unique to the Final Fantasy series set, and that is a saga that is also a creature. So this is 3 and 2 blue for Shiva, and when it comes into play, we do our first saga counter, and that is Heavenly Strike. Tap target creature and opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Turn 2, do the same thing on your upkeep. Turn 3, draw a card for each tapped creature your opponent controls, but you still sacrifice this creature after 3. There may come out with a card, in fact, I will be disappointed if they don't, that allows you to keep your summons. It says sagas don't expire after 3 counters. You may put unlimited amount of counters on them, something like that. I hope to see in the set, or in Tarkir when it comes out. Overall, I don't think Shiva is anything super impressive, but I think the summon archetype here is going to be great, and I cannot wait to see Bahamut and hopefully Gilgamesh. And we got some starter deck cards here. Cloud Planets Champion. This is not part of the commander set, so this is one of the clouds you can get. It's nothing impressive. 3, a red, a white, legendary human soldier mercenary, so some relatively important card types. And then during your turn, as long as he's equipped, it has double strike and indestructible. Okay. And equipped abilities you activate that target him cost 2 less to activate. He's fine. He's not good. He's not meta. But for an equipment deck, he might be fun to play, and as a starter deck going against his counterpart, it could be a fun deck to play. Speaking of his counterpart, we see our first Sephiroth card. He is a human avatar soldier for a blue and a black, so really, really expensive for a 4/4. Has vigilance. It is a sweeper for a -2/-2 to all creatures when he enters, and whenever one of those creatures die, so specifically that an opponent controls, put a +1/+1 counter on him. This is hopefully the weakest Sephiroth we see. I don't think this is going to be making any big splashes, but it could be fun at like a pre-con commander deck level, or just in general, again, to play with that starter deck against the Cloud Planets champion. I think that will be a lot of fun, so I'm happy to see those. We got the first of a side quest card. This is just an enchantment that has a transform effect based on something you do, and this one's pretty straightforward. Look at the top card of your library. If it's an artifact creature card, reveal it, put it in your hand. You may put a card into your hand this way, or if you put a card into your hand this way, create a food token and transform it. Really easy transform. There's a good chance you're going to do this turn to 4 or 5 with this for a turn 3 play. But unfortunately, Cooking Campsite, I don't think is good enough to justify that. It's a land that taps for planes, and you can pay 3, tap, sacrifice an artifact, and put a +1/+1 counter on each artifact, or each creature you control. It's neat. I'm looking forward to seeing what these other side quests are. I don't think this is anything impressive. Again, this might even be in like a starter deck level. It's cool to see, cool to get an idea of. And then we have Sin Spira's Punishment. This is 4, a black, a green, and a blue for a Leviathan avatar at rare, flying 7/7, and whenever it enters or attacks, you get to exile a permanent card from your graveyard at random, then create a tap token that is a copy of that card. If it's a land, repeat this process. Really cool. I think this is better than the other endgame boss we saw, which was Chaos. I don't really think you're going to be playing this much either, though. 7/7, 4/7, so this competes with something like Atraxa, and I think this is way worse than Atraxa. Flying being its only keyword, the randomness of going and getting a card out. It'll be fun to play. I expect to see it a little bit. I don't think it's going to be meta, which unfortunately we've said a lot thus far. And then we have the one card which I do think has the potential to do meta. And that's Jumbo Cactar. 5 and 2 green for a rare creature plant. That's 1/7. 10,000 needles. Whenever this creature attacks, it gets plus 9,999 and 0 toughness until end of turn. This is a card. This is a card I'm actually kind of worried about being a little too pushed, if anything, which I don't think we want to see from the Final Fantasy set. I think that will definitely have some negative reaction to them pushing the very popular non-magic world. However, you can chump block a 10,000 damage creature, but it's hard to block it being flung into your face, and we have a few ways in Standard to do that. You give this trample, and it's a problem. You can definitely get 7 lands out in green pretty quickly. This could very well be a turn 4, turn 5 Gruul aggro style deck that just wins the moment it hits the ground, essentially. It's definitely going to be a card that we have to kill the moment we see it. So maybe those decks will be forced to play something like Snakeskin's Veil for the indestructible hexproof, but green has a lot of answers like that. Some, I think, even at just 1 green mana. So yeah, this is a fun card. I will definitely be playing it in quite a few brews, not only in the obvious fling and trample decks, but I think we can probably find other ways to make this good. Even Reanimator could probably use this. Maybe Cage, I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, it's going to be a fun card. It's going to be a little crazy. It might get banned, we will see. And that's all the new cards. I hope you enjoyed. And Wizards, I will see you next time.